Hello and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today. Today we review the Power Station's debut self-titled 1985 album. It's really good. This is the track listing, and these are the tracks added to my playlist. 6 out of 8, so all of them but 2. This album's really good. The quality is high, the songs are mostly pretty interesting, and the sound is relatively consistent without being boring. It flows alright, but not outstanding. Since most of the tracks end up sort of a similar speed and sound, they're all sort of quick-paced, new wavy stuff, so there isn't much texture across the whole album. That being said, Get It On is a good way to start off side 2, and going into Go to Zero fits pretty well. Still in Your Heart is a well-chosen final track. And in general, I think side 2 is better put together than side 1, although side 1 still shows off the album pretty decently. The sound here is all new wave, but it's a slightly more experimental mid-80s version. It's more techno, it doesn't rely on pop hooks as much, it still has them, but it makes it stand out a little bit better when compared to some of the other albums that came out at this time. Plus, they still got one or two big hits here, like Get It On or Some Like It Hot, so the overall quality remains high. The main thing that helps this album is that the songs are all a consistent sound, and yet they still sound different enough to remain interesting. You know, 6 songs here all stand out pretty well, even though they are all clearly from the same album. There's only one single released before the album, the opening track, Some Like It Hot, which I believe was on the radio at the time along with Get It On, which is a cover actually. My favorite song here is definitely that one, Get It On. It's definitely the best track here, blows past most of the other tracks on here, which is kind of funny given that it's a cover. But for a non sort of radio hit track, I would probably go with Go to Zero, the one that comes up right after that. It's probably second best here, and really sort of an interesting track. As this is the first Power Station album, it takes the only spot in the rankings. They do have another album, so I'll be listening to that in the coming week and deciding which one is better. As the Power Station is a bit of a Duran Duran spinoff, it doesn't hurt to rank it among Duran Duran's albums, to which it goes probably 4th, in between Notorious and Seven and the Ragged Tiger. The Power Station is definitely a bit better than Notorious, and it's more interesting than most Duran Duran albums, but it's not quite as clean as their first or second releases. It's probably the same level as Seven and the Ragged Tiger, but that album has a lot more hits on it, so I think the Power Station goes just below it. This does mean, however, that the Power Station beats out Arcadia's album, So Red the Rose. Arcadia is another Duran Duran spinoff from the exact same time, which is a little interesting. I feel the Power Station is a lot more interesting than Arcadia as a band, although the quality is pretty similar. They're both kind of at the same level. Also, this album doesn't take my top spot from 1985, although it did come close. That stays with Talking Heads' Little Creatures, which is probably only slightly higher quality and only slightly more interesting than the Power Station. They've definitely got Little Creatures beat on consistency and sound, but it's a bit hard to be more interesting than the Talking Heads, so it keeps the top spot by just a little bit. Thank you for watching. Next up, I will review Sting's 1996 album, Mercury Falling. It's pretty good, one of his better albums in my opinion, so stay tuned for that, and as always, stay minty.